Hey everyone, my name is Jeff Jama, and today I'll be giving you a presentation on artificial intelligence in the government and public service industry. So just to give you a brief introduction of what AI looks like right now in the government and public service industry, basically it has been slower to adopt AI. And this is because the government and public service industry have bureaucratic values. So, they enforce strict regulations, or they like to, and they like to embrace procedures. But all these procedures and regulations usually act as red tape, making it more difficult for them to formally adopt AI. Not only that, the federal workforce is declining, and this creates pressure for them to come up with more efficient ways. And this is where AI could help. It could kind of fill that gap. But with the use of AI, there are risks, and the big problem is that government officials may already be using AI or are trying to use AI prior to policies and regulations being put in place for its use. As far as an industry overview, currently the government and public service industries use AI for the following. They use claims processing, benefits administration, so a lot of like human resources ordeals, health and environmental predictions, video surveillance analysis, legal outcome predictions, infrastructure management, and chatbots. So a lot of things that help with administrative roles. In the article provided for the government and public services industry, Sanford discusses how government officials in Washington were using ChatGPT for work. So basically, public records requests were sent out, and two of the cities that responded first were used, and they revealed what had been asked of ChatGPT by government officials. And this was help with emails, and this could be generating emails or just reviewing them for tone, speeches, so writing speeches, press releases, social media posts, grants, policy documents, and these are all things that government officials were asking for help for, and or having artificial intelligence actually generate these documents or these speeches or emails. And this is where it gets concerning, because are these individuals or are these government officials that we place trust in, are they just copying and pasting it? Are they reviewing it? To what extent are they using artificial intelligence? And so the problem is AI is being used prior to formal policies being established and followed. And that brings us to ethical concerns. Once again, we're thinking, to what extent should government officials or government as an entity be able to use AI? And we must remember that the government handles a lot of our personal information, such as health information, social security numbers, addresses, criminal records, immigration status, and much more. And we need to know what this is being used for, or if they have access to it. And so it's very concerning, as a lot of this information is sensitive. So our concerns of AI use by government officials should include privacy. What are they using our information for? Is it being included? What do these AI companies, that they are inputting our information to, use it for? Or how can it be, stolen or anything like that? And then surveillance, are they using this information, or are they using AI to help surveil us more and monitor us? To what extent does this create biases? AI is is built in with machine learning. They're integrated together, and machines learn biases, and we've seen this with a variety of failures in the past, which was, like the Tay chatbot example. That was released on Twitter by Microsoft and had to be shut down within 16 hours because it learned how to mimic people's offensive behaviors. Or Amazon and their AI resume review that discriminated against women, or Optum's AI that recommended healthcare at a greater rate, or have more healthcare recommendations for white individuals as opposed to black individuals. Obviously these systems can learn how biases and how to discriminate. And if this is being used by our government officials, that could lead to a loss of trust or a loss of public trust. because we are electing or we're voting for people who we trust to make the decisions, the best decisions on behalf of us, the people, or for the greater good. And if they're using AI, what are we really electing them for? Are we really trusting them, or are we just trusting, the black box that they input information into? And then lastly, we've seen like social credit systems. In one of the other courses in this program, we talked about China's social credit scoring system. Is this information, if we put it into AI, is it going to be having government officials or the government, you know, placing us in certain, you know, or providing us with a score, just like how in China they do, where people who have a lower social credit score, do not have the same access to, for example, education or opportunity. So these are some concerns that we must think about. Some of the solutions that were discussed within the article or throughout the readings, the first one would be transparency. And so you see disclosure requirements, those are growing quite a bit across industries. But I know in the article itself, it was discussing how the IT department kind of had some disclosure requirements that people who use AI to generate anything for the government must disclose or label those as AI generated. The other thing was, AI, or when you use AI, it should require some kind of human review. So a lot of people were informally doing this, like government officials were claiming that they were using AI, but they must go back and, reread it before they actually send anything out. But maybe this should be something that's more formalized, right, into policy, because we know AI has been known to fabricate facts and develop biases, and a human should read it to make sure that it's okay before it is sent out to the masses, or even just to another individual. Another solution is to train employees on responsible use. For example, Salesforce was an example that we used for another industry case example. And they basically said, hey, we're going to be proactive about this. We've looked at past failures in AI, and we're going to create an architect team to ethically look at AI, and what they did is they created systems to train employees through new hire orientations, through training programs for employees, just to spread AI ethical awareness. And that is another solution as well. And lastly, we could hold these AI companies accountable. If they provide some kind of suggestions or recommendations or outputs that harm or put people at risk, they should be held accountable, and that is another solution. Other solutions also include laws and regulations, although these are very slow moving. For example, the U.S. does not have one single federal AI law, although we have seen blueprints exist, but they're not formalized into federal law. AI governance is in the form of executive orders, agencies. There are some state laws and pending legislation, and we've also seen acts in the European Union. So they're not huge, but they're very regional at this point in time. But basically, we need to draw the line on what is appropriate use. For example, we may feel like it's appropriate for people to say, hey, can you check the tone of this email, see if it comes across or sounds like it comes across, appropriately, versus do we want these government officials using these AI tools to, create policies for us and just hit copy and paste, knowing all the AI failures of discrimination and biases that AI has developed in the past. So, I think that the level of oversight should match the level of risk. The more risks there are, we should have a greater level of oversight and legislation, regulation, and governance in general. In my own personal experience, I have noticed AI becoming more common, and not only that, it's becoming more accepted. That people are going to use it, and I particularly noticed this both in this MBA program. This whole MBA program in business analytics has really discussed AI throughout almost every class. And also, just this term, taking your class, there's an AI disclosure requirement. And I've also noticed this put in. I visited the University of North Carolina, Greensboro, which I'm in the EDD program in kinesiology there, and they have also implemented AI disclosure requirements. So, for example, as I'm writing my dissertation, we have to add an AI disclosure requirement to our dissertation work. So, this is showing how important transparency is becoming. And then another personal reflection that I think about is the government has a greater responsibility than private companies do to their role due to their role in public trust, safety, and privacy. So we entrust people, we elect people to look out for us and the greater good. And because of that, they have a more of a responsibility, an ethical responsibility to us as people to make sure that they don't put us in danger and they use AI appropriately, especially being that they have so much access to our own personal information, sensitive data, and also they make decisions that, could impact us. And so, being that they have such responsibility, they must, really be cautious with AI and they need to be regulated, as they use it. So, in conclusion, AI is advancing faster than regulation can keep up. The problem is not necessarily AI, because AI is really a tool, but how AI is being used. The government must balance their public trust, that idea of transparency, privacy, and human oversight, with the need for efficiency. Like, we understand that, the workforce is shrinking and they need to be working more efficiently. But with that said, we still must make sure that we keep the public risk low when using AI. And so, like I said, AI may improve efficiency, but it still needs to be used responsibly. And here are my references. Thank you for watching this presentation. All right, bye.